The rain was heavy that night, falling like silver nails from the sky. The streets were empty, dark, and wet. Most people had already gone home, hiding from the cold wind and the storm. But Derek was still out there, walking with tired feet and a soaked jacket. He had just finished delivering the last package of the night. He was ready to go home, warm up, and sleep. But then, something strange caught his eye. Under a broken street lamp, a small figure stood alone. She was not moving, not speaking, just standing there in the rain. As Derek walked closer, he saw that it was a girl. Not a human girl, but an alien child. She looked about 7 or 8 years old, with thin arms and pale purple skin. Her long silver hair was wet and stuck to her face. Her eyes were wide open, but they were clouded. She was blind. She wore a simple dress, now muddy and soaked, and in her hand she held a small paper, just one piece. Folded many times, Derek stopped in front of her, his heart tight in his chest. He had seen many things in the city, but never something like this. A blind alien girl standing alone in the rain. In the middle of the night, "Hey there," Derek said softly. Kneeling down, "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The girl said nothing. She only held out the paper to him. He took it carefully and unfolded it. There was just one word written in shaky letters. "Help." Derek looked around, expecting someone to show up. Maybe a parent or a guard, but there was no one. The street was silent except for the sound of the rain. He asked a few nearby vendors, but they had not seen her before. One man even told him to leave her alone. "Don't get involved," he whispered. "You don't want trouble," but Derek couldn't walk away. There was something about her face, the way she stood so still. Not crying, not asking for anything, just trusting someone would help. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her small body. She didn't resist, only leaned a little toward him, like she was trying to feel warmth. "All right," Derek said. "Let's get you out of the rain." He picked her up gently, her small arms wrapping around his neck. She felt light, too light, as if she had not eaten in days. He started walking through the narrow streets. Not sure where to go, his apartment was too far. And he didn't want to draw attention. But attention came anyway as he turned a corner. He saw 2 armored soldiers standing at the checkpoint. They were scanning people with strange hand devices. One of them was talking into a radio. "We're still looking." "She couldn't have gone far," the other one replied. "The girl is blind. Remember, she won't move fast." Derek froze. The girl in his arms gripped his shoulder tighter. She had heard them too. Her small voice finally spoke, shaking and soft. "They are looking for me." Derek turned around quickly and walked the other way. His heart was beating fast. This wasn't just a lost child. She was being hunted. He took a longer route through the older part of the city, where fewer lights worked and the roads were cracked. Every few minutes, he glanced over his shoulder. He heard a low humming sound. Looking up, he saw a small drone flying slowly across the sky. It stopped suddenly and turned toward him. A red light blinked underneath it, scanning. Derek ducked into an alley just in time. The drone passed over without spotting them. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. The girl didn't cry. She didn't panic. She only whispered, "Thank you." Derek looked at her face. Her eyes still blind but calm. She had trusted him, a stranger. And he had no idea why. He didn't know what to do next, or who these people were, but he knew one thing. He couldn't let them take her, even if it meant running, hiding, and fighting. Even if it meant risking everything, because some part of him believed this girl wasn't just special. She might change everything. The rain had stopped. But the night was still cold. Derek carried the blind alien girl through quiet alleys, his arms aching and his mind racing. Every shadow looked dangerous. Every sound made him look over his shoulder. He didn't know who was after her, or why. But something deep inside told him she was important. He found an old maintenance tunnel, hidden behind a broken wall. It was dark and smelled like rust. But it was dry and empty. He laid the girl down gently on a pile of cloth and sat beside her. She didn't speak for a while, just curled up under his jacket and listened to the silence. Derek finally asked, "What's your name?" She moved her head slowly and whispered Luma. Her voice was soft and clear, almost musical. "Where are your parents?" He asked. "They're gone," she said, not crying, just stating it like a fact. Derek wanted to ask more, but he stopped. She looked so tired, so small, like she had carried a world of pain inside her. Instead, he looked at the strange bracelet on her wrist. It wasn't made of normal metal, it shimmered like it was alive. Glowing symbols moved slowly along its surface, changing shape every few seconds. "Can I see that?" Derek asked, pointing to the bracelet. Luma nodded, and he took a picture with his old communicator. He sent it to his friend Max, a tech expert who owed him a few favors. Then he waited, heart thumping, hoping Max was still awake. A few minutes later, the screen buzzed. Max had replied, "Where did you get that?" "That's royal code, Derek and Sean Tech from the Valari Empire. Who is that girl?" Derek stared at the message, confused. He looked at Luma again now. She seemed even more mysterious. Royal code. Valari Empire. He remembered hearing stories about it. A powerful alien empire destroyed in a civil war years ago. But why would a blind girl with royal tech be hiding on Earth? Suddenly, Luma sat up, her eyes still empty, but her face alert. "They're coming," she said. Derek listened carefully and heard it too. Distant footsteps, voices, the sharp click of boots on metal. Whoever they were searching the tunnels. Derek grabbed his bag and picked up Luma again. She held on to him tightly. Like she had done this before, he moved fast but quiet. Following the path deeper underground, the tunnel turned left and opened into a larger chamber filled with old machines and wires. He hid behind a big crate, holding his breath. Voices grew louder, and a beam of light passed over the wall above him. "Search every tunnel," someone said. "She can't get far." Derek's body froze. These weren't just guards. They were trained hunters, and they were close. Suddenly, Luma's bracelet began to glow brighter. She raised her hand and touched a metal door nearby. There was a soft hum, and the door slid open slowly, revealing a dark hallway. Derek stared in shock. "How did you do that?" He whispered. She simply said, "It listens to me." They slipped inside and closed the door behind them. Derek didn't ask more. He just kept moving. After what felt like an hour, they reached a small maintenance room filled with broken screens and cables. He finally set her down and sat beside her, breathing hard. "You're not just a lost girl, are you?" he asked. Luma didn't answer. Instead, she took something out of her paquita, tiny cube that lit up when she held it. A hologram appeared, showing a beautiful city of silver towers and blue skies. "It was my home," she said. Before the fire, Derek watched in silence. The image shifted to show tall alien soldiers with bright armor. Then explosions, people running, and fire everywhere. "They came for my father," she said, her voice shaking now. "He tried to protect us, but they betrayed him." "Who were they?" Derek asked. "My own people," Luma whispered. "They wanted power. They wanted the throne. I escaped. But I couldn't save anyone else." Derek felt anger and sadness rise inside him. This child had seen more horror than most adults, and now she was on Earth, alone and hunted. "But why you?" he asked. "Why are they still chasing you?" She touched her bracelet and said, "Because I am the last of the true blood." Derek didn't fully understand. But he knew one thing: this girl was not just important, she was dangerous to the people in power. And if they caught her, they wouldn't just take her back. They would silence her forever. His communicator buzzed again, another message from Max. Derek, listen to me. That bracelet opens royal vaults and weapons. It can command fleets if used right. Protect that girl at all costs. Derek looked at Luma, who had now fallen asleep beside him. He reached for his jacket and covered her, his hand resting lightly on the bracelet. He had no training, no weapons, and no plan. But he had made a choice. He would protect her, no matter what came next, because deep in his heart he believed one thing. Luma was the key to something bigger than both of them. The next morning came slow and gray. The sun barely reached the city through thick clouds and smoke. Derek hadn't slept. His eyes stayed open all night, watching the shadows move across the old maintenance room. Luma slept peacefully, her breathing soft, her small hands curled under her chin. She looked like any normal child, but he now knew she was far from normal. Derek stood and stretched, his body aching. He needed answers, and he needed help. But he also needed to make sure Luma was healthy. She had barely eaten, and the way she used her strange powers, he worried it was draining her. There was one place he could go. An old friend of his worked in a hidden medical outpost beneath the city, one that didn't ask questions. He wrapped Luma gently in his coat again, and they moved quietly through the back streets. They avoided drones, patrols, and scanners. Every step felt heavier, as if the city itself was pressing down on him. They finally reached the outpost, hidden behind a junkyard and buried under layers of broken buildings. Inside, it was quiet and cold, filled with the soft hum of machines. Derek's friend, a medic named Elon, raised an eyebrow when he saw them. "She doesn't look human," Elon whispered. "She's not," Derek said. "But I need you to check her." "No questions." Elon nodded and brought out his old scanner. Luma sat on the metal table calmly, silent as usual. When Elon placed the scanner near her arm, the screen blinked, then turned red. Warning lights flashed for a moment before the machine shut down. Elon's face went pale. He stepped back slowly and looked at Derek with wide eyes. "What's wrong?" Derek asked. Elon whispered. "Her blood. It's not just alien, it's royal class biomarked. This scanner is military grade. It detected genetic authority. Derek? She's someone very important." Derek already knew, but hearing it again made his heart pound. What does that mean? It means she could activate ancient systems. "Control ships override defenses," Elon said. "She's living power. You need to get out of here," before Derek could reply. The door to the outpost burst open. Two armored bounty hunters stormed in with rifles raised. They didn't speak, they were ready to shoot. Derek grabbed Luma and rolled behind the table. Lasers blasted against the metal walls, sparks flying everywhere. He looked at Elon, who tossed him a smoke bomb. "Go, now." The medic shouted, pulling out a small pistol to cover them. Derek pressed the button on the smoke bomb and tossed it. Thick gray fog filled the room instantly, hiding them from view. He picked up Luma and ran through the back door, his heart pounding like a drum. They rushed through a broken hallway, up a narrow shaft, and out onto a fire escape. Below them, more bounty hunters were gathering, scanning the area. Derek moved quickly across the rooftops, jumping over vents and ducking low. Behind them, loud voices shouted orders, and drones began scanning again. They finally reached an abandoned train station. There, hidden under layers of rusted steel, they found a small storage room. Derek locked the door and placed Luma on a crate. Both of them breathing hard. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't think they'd find us so fast." Luma didn't look scared. Instead, she placed her hand on his arm and said, "It's not your fault. They always find me." He looked at her, this strange blind girl who never cried, never begged, never broke down. She was stronger than anyone he had ever met. But he could see she was also tired. "Why don't you fight back?" He asked, "You have power?" She shook her head. "I'm afraid," she said, "when I use it, I lose a piece of myself. It's not just light, it's memory. Each time I fight, I forget something." Derek felt a chill run through him. She wasn't just risking her life, she was losing who she was, piece by piece, and yet, she still chose to run, to survive, to hope. He couldn't leave her now. He wouldn't. His communicator buzzed again. Another message from Max. "I traced the code on her bracelet, Derek. If what I found is true, she might be the daughter of Emperor Kale. That means half the galaxy is looking for her." Derek stared at the screen. Shocked, Emperor Kale the ruler, who vanished during the Great War. If Luma was his daughter. He turned to her. "Luma, your father. Was he a king?" She hesitated, then nodded. "They called him the Lightbringer," she whispered. "He tried to end the war. But his brother wanted power, so he betrayed him. And me?" Everything made sense, now the bracelet. The powers, the hunters, the fear, she was more than a lost girl. She was the last hope of a fallen empire. Derek looked out at the dark city through a cracked window. He could have walked away when he first saw her. But now, he was part of something bigger, something that could shake the stars. And he knew one thing for sure, they would not stop. Not until she was captured or dead, but neither would he. Asterisk, the train station shook as another cargo train roared past above. Derek sat against the cold wall of the storage room. Watching Luma rest, her small chest rose and fell slowly, and her silver hair glowed faintly even in the dark. He felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. The girl he had rescued was no ordinary alien child. She was the lost daughter of Emperor Kaltha, man who tried to bring peace before the war swallowed the stars. And now she was being hunted by the very people who had betrayed her family. Derek knew hiding wouldn't work forever. They needed a plan, a direction, anything. And they needed it soon. When Luma woke, her eyes stared straight ahead as always. Blank and blind, but her voice was clear. "There's something I must find," she said. "In the old forest, the forest." Derek asked, surprised, that place had been abandoned after the last battle years ago. Twisted trees, fallen ships, and broken memories covered the land. No one went there now, but Luma nodded, sure of it. "There's a message waiting for me," she said. My father left it. Derek didn't argue. He had learned to trust her instincts even if they didn't make sense. By nightfall, they had left the city, hiding in the shadows, taking the long path out, once outside. The air smelled different, cold, wild, untouched. The forest stood tall and silent like a graveyard. They stepped through thick roots and fallen steel, past burnt armor and ruined machines. Every step made Derek's heart beat faster. There was so much history here, so much pain. Finally, deep in the woods. Luma stopped in front of a broken metal shell. It looked like part of a crashed escape pod. Covered in moss and vines, she reached out and touched it. And the metal pulsed beneath her hand. A quiet hum filled the air, and then a soft light blinked on. The pod came to life, shaking off years of sleep. A hidden compartment opened, and inside was a small, glowing orb. Luma took it carefully, holding it in both hands. The orb floated above her palms, then burst into blue light. A hologram appeared. Derek stepped back, eyes wide. A tall alien stood in the light. Noble and strong, his eyes full of sadness. "It was Emperor Kale to my daughter," the voice said. "Calm but tired, if you are hearing this. It means I have failed. They betrayed me, Luma, my brother, my counsel. They turned on me. I sent you away to keep you safe." Luma didn't move, but tears rolled down her cheeks. "I never wanted you to carry this burden," the voice continued. "But you are all that remains. You carry the blood of the light. if the time comes. Find the ark. The hologram flickered and ended. Silence returned, cold and deep. Luma dropped to her knees, holding the orb close. He's gone, she whispered. I knew it. But hearing it hurts. Derek knelt beside her. Placing a hand on her shoulder, he loved you, he said. He risked everything to protect you. She nodded. Wiping her tears, the ark, she said. It's real, it holds the truth. The history. Maybe even a way to stop them before Derek could reply. A sharp beep came from his communicator. He checked it quickly and cursed. Enemy signals fast-moving crafts flying toward their location. They tracked us, he said, standing up. We have to move. They ran through the forest, the orb still glowing in Luma's hands. Drones zipped through the trees, scanning the ground. One spotted them and fired, missing by inches. Derek grabbed a metal plate from the wreckage and used it as a shield. Blocking another blast, they dove into a hollowed log, panting and covered in mud. Luma placed her hand on the orb again. It responded to her touch. Shooting a beam into the ground, suddenly, part of the earth opened up a hidden platform rising from below. A ship, Luma said, smiling faintly. My father hid it here. The craft was small, but sleek. Built for speed and stealth, Derek helped her climb in and powered it up. The ship responded instantly to Luma's presence lights blinking on. Engines humming, they lifted off just as enemy soldiers reached the crash site. Blaster fire followed them, but the ship was too fast. They flew high above the forest, into the clouds. Luma sat beside Derek, her small hands still holding the orb. We have a way now, she said, to fight back. Derek nodded, gripping the controls for the first time. They had a purpose, a target, a message from the past to guide them. But the enemy wouldn't stop, and neither would they. Not until the truth reached the stars. The stars above them looked cold and distant as the ship slipped through space. Derek sat at the controls, trying to stay calm. But his thoughts were racing. Luma was quiet beside him, her hands resting on the glowing orb. Her blind eyes stared forward. But Derek could feel something changing inside her. She had seen the message from her father. And now she carried not only pain but purpose. They couldn't hide forever. They needed allies, and they needed them fast. Luma's powers were strong, but they were unstable. And the enemy was growing bolder, faster, more dangerous. That's when Derek remembered a name someone he met long ago during a supply run. A leader in the underground rebellion, hidden deep inside a desert moon. A group of exiles who hated the empire and its lies. If anyone would help, it would be them. The journey to the moon was quiet but tense. Every signal, every flash of light in space made Derek's hand jump toward the controls. When they landed, they were met by guards with rough armor and older weapons. They scanned the ship and raised their blasters when they saw Luma. She's one of them, one guard shouted. No, Derek said quickly. She's not. She's the last hope you've been waiting for. They were taken to a deep underground base carved into the stone. Old machines, broken banners, and scarred walls told stories of many battles. Derek could feel the eyes watching them, mistrustful, angry, tired. They entered a large chamber where leaders sat in a circle of stone chairs. Rebels, mercenaries, former soldiers, people who had lost everything. The central figure was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She was called Commander Rena, and she did not like surprises. You brought an alien child here, she said coldly. Do you know how many of my people died because of them? She's not your enemy, Derek said, standing firm. She's the daughter of Emperor Kale. She was betrayed. Just like you. The room fell silent, eyes widened, weapons lowered slightly. But the silence quickly turned to whispers. Then arguments, lies. One man shouted. She could be a spy, said another. Even if she is Kale's daughter, What does that mean for us?" Rena raised her hand to silence them. She looked at Luma, who stood quietly, calm despite the shouting. "You say you are Kale's daughter," Rena said. "Prove it." Luma stepped forward, removing the bracelet from her wrist. She placed it on a scanner built into the stone floor. The machine hummed, then blinked green. A symbol appeared above the ancient mark of the Valari royal bloodline. Gasps filled the chamber, but not everyone was convinced. "Blood means nothing," a man growled. "Where was her family when we burned?" Rena looked at Derek, her eyes sharp. "If you want our help, there must be a trial," she said. "Not with swords or guns, one of truth. She will answer questions. And we will decide." Derek didn't like it. But he nodded. He looked at Luma, who only said, "I'm not afraid." They placed her in the center of the room. One by one, the rebels asked her questions about the war. About her father, about the betrayal. Luma answered every one with calm honesty. She spoke of fear, of escape, of watching her world fall apart. Some eyes softened, some remained cold. Then came the final vote. Rena stood and said, "Those in favor of protecting her." "Raise your hand." Slowly, more than half the room did. But one man in the back did not. He stood, eyes full of hate, and walked away silently. No one noticed. Not even Derek. That night, as Derek and Luma rested in a small room, alarms suddenly blared through the base. Explosions shook the walls and red lights flashed. Derek grabbed Luma and ran into the hallway. Rebels were shouting, weapons drawn. Smoke filling the air. "They found us." Someone yelled, "They knew our location." "How?" Derek shouted, but deep inside he already knew. The man who walked away had betrayed them. He had sent their location to the Empire. Now they were under attack. Luma's bracelet glowed again, reacting to her fear. She reached for Derek's hand. Her body shaking. "I can help," she said. "But I might lose more memories." "No," Derek said. Holding her close, "We'll fight another way, together." They joined the rebels, trying to reach the escape tunnels. Blaster fire lit the corridors, and walls crumbled around them. They fought side by side with strangers who, just hours ago, had doubted them as they neared the exit. Derek looked back at the chaos behind them. He had hoped to find safety. Instead, he had found war again. And now he knew there was no turning back. They had crossed a line, and the enemy would chase them to the edge of the galaxy. But he didn't care, because now, they weren't just running, they were fighting. The underground base burned behind them. Smoke filled the air as Derek and Luma ran through the emergency tunnels. The ground shook with every explosion, and the walls cracked from falling debris. Rebel fighters were retreating, covering each other with blasts of fire. The Empire had arrived in full force with soldiers, drones, and dark ships that filled the sky above the moon. Derek held Luma's hand tightly, his other hand gripping a stolen blaster. She moved beside him, not needing eyes to know where to go. The bracelet on her wrist glowed brighter than ever. Pulsing like a heartbeat, it seemed to guide her, turning her steps into steady, fearless strides. "We're close," she said. "I can feel it." They reached the old hangar buried beneath the cliffs. Inside sat a dusty, hidden starship's maul, fast and untouched for years. Derek had only heard stories about it from Commander Rena before the attack. "This was meant to be your escape," he said to Luma. "In case things went wrong." She nodded, already moving to the ship's side panel. The ship didn't respond to Derek's touch, but the moment Luma placed her palm on it, lights blinked on, the engines hummed to life. The metal shaking as systems reactivated. She had unlocked it with her blood. Her presence, her birthright. Outside, the enemy was closing in. Blaster fire struck the rocks near the entrance, and soldiers in black armor ran toward them. Derek fired back. Shouting for the rebels still alive to hurry, several joined them. Diving for cover behind crates and machinery. Go. One rebel shouted, "Take the girl and flywheel, hold them here." Derek hesitated, but Luma gripped his hand. "We have to leave," she said. "They're doing this for a reason." He nodded. Teeth clenched, heart heavy. He hated leaving anyone behind. But he knew she was right. They rushed up the ramp. And the ship sealed behind them. Derek jumped into the pilot's seat. The controls lighting up under Luma's soft voice commands. She sat beside him, her fingers brushing over the glowing console. "I can fly it," she said calmly. "You can fly?" Derek asked, surprised. She nodded. "My father taught me before everything fell." The engines roared. And the ship lifted into the air. They burst through the side of the cliff. Blasting past enemy forces, drones swarmed toward them. But the ship was too fast, weaving through rock and fire like a bird escaping a cage. As they reached open space, several Imperial ships gave chase. Derek fired the rear cannons while Luma focused on flying. She moved the ship with a skill that felt almost supernatural. The stars twisted around them as they shot forward at light speed. Enemy fighters exploded behind them, one by one. But it wasn't over. Ahead of them, waiting in orbit, was a destroyer-class warship. Its weapons locked on them, preparing to fire. "We can't go through that," Derek said. Eyes wide. "Yes," Luma said, her voice steady. "We can." She closed her eyes and touched the control orb in the center of the console. The ship responded instantly, panels shifting. Engines glowing brighter. A shield of pure light formed around them. Made of the same energy as her bracelet, the warship fired. Beams of red energy tearing through space. But the light around Luma's ship absorbed it, bent it, and sent it scattering into stars. They shot past the destroyer, untouched, and vanished into hyperspace. Silence returned as the stars turned into long, glowing lines. Derek let out a deep breath, his hands shaking. "That was impossible," he whispered. "It's the power of the Ark," Luma said softly. "And we're getting closer." He looked at her, truly seeing her not just as a lost girl, but as something greater. She was learning who she was, and her strength was growing. But it came at a cost. "How are you holding up?" he asked. Luma turned toward him, her eyes blank but filled with emotion. "I remember less each time I use it," she said. "Faces, names. They fade, but I must keep going." Derek reached out and held her hand. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "We'll find this Ark together." She smiled, just a little. "I believe you." As the ship flew deeper into unknown space, a signal began to blink on the console. It was an old frequency, one from the days of the Empire. Luma touched it, and a map unfolded before them, a star system hidden behind solar storms. The Ark was real, and it was waiting. But so were others. A shadow moved across the stars. Dark and full of rage, the enemy had followed their trail, and they were preparing for war. Derek and Luma didn't know what they would find at the Ark, but they knew the galaxy would never be the same again. And they were ready, because from this moment on, they were no longer running, they were rising. The ship floated through the storm clouds of the hidden system. Lighting cracked outside the windows, turning space into a wild sea of fire and wind. Derek stood at the front, watching the storm. His heart heavy and ready. Luma stood beside him, calm and still, her silver hair flowing like silk in the strange light. They had reached the final destination, the place her father had spoken of. The Ark. It wasn't a building or a ship. It was a floating city made of light and crystal, hidden inside a gas giant's calm center, old and silent, untouched by time. It held secrets that could change everything. As their ship landed on the glowing platform, Derek could feel the air thrum with power, even without sight. Luma stepped forward as if she had walked these steps before. Doors opened for her, lights followed her movement. The Ark remembered her blood, her name, her family. They walked through long halls, past statues of kings, queens, and warriors, her ancestors. At the center was a massive chamber filled with golden energy. In the middle stood a console shaped like a star. Waiting. "This is it," she said. Her voice strong now. "I can wake the system. Send the truth to every world." Derek looked at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "They must know what really happened, what my uncle did, what the Empire became." She placed both hands on the console, and light exploded through the chamber. Her bracelet melted into the star-shaped device. Becoming part of it, images filled the air, memories, messages, recordings from the war. It showed her father begging for peace. It showed the betrayal, the lies. The moment he sent Luma away, it was proof, pure, powerful, and undeniable. The signal was sent to every corner of the galaxy. To rebels, soldiers, governors, and even enemies. Everyone saw it, and the truth broke chains. But it also made enemies furious. A warning rang through the Ark. Derek turned to the ship's screen. An enemy fleet was approaching. And leading them was the darkest ship of all, the Vengeance, ruled by Luma's uncle. High Lord Varen. He had tracked them across the stars. And now he was here to end it. "We don't have much time," Derek said, readying his weapon. But Luma didn't move. "No," she said. "This ends now." She walked calmly back to the ship. The systems responded to her touch like she was already a queen. As they rose into the sky, the Ark behind them began to vanish, hidden once again by her command. They flew toward the fleet, not to run, but to stand. Rebel ships, inspired by the message, began to appear from hyperspace, one by one. Fighters from lost worlds came to support her. They had seen the truth, and now they believed. Luma opened a communication channel to Varen's ship. His face appeared cold, sharp, and angry. "You should have stayed hidden," he said. "Now I'll erase you forever." "You already tried," she replied. "You failed." He fired, and chaos erupted in space. Derek flew through the firestorm, dodging blasts, returning fire, but Luma remained still. Her eyes closed, her mind focused. She reached into the ship's core and awakened something deeper. The Ark's energy flowed through her light, memory, legacy. She spoke in the ancient language of her people. And her ship responded. It glowed brighter than the sun, forming shields, weapons, and a voice that echoed across the stars. "I am Luma of Valari," she declared, her voice shaking the fleet. "Daughter of Kale, child of the true line, I do not run anymore. You will not rule through fear." Varen's ships began to fall back, confused and afraid, but his flagship moved forward. Ready to destroy them both, Derek shouted, "Now, Luma." She unleashed the full light of the Ark through the ship's core. A beam of truth and power struck Varen's vessel, not to destroy, but to reveal his crimes, his lies, his secret history, all broadcasted in real time. His own army turned on him, refusing to follow a coward hiding behind false power. The battle ended without more blood. The truth had won. Luma's ship landed on the old capital planet days later. Crowds waited, unsure, watching with cautious hope. And when she stepped out, blind eyes facing the rising sun, silence fell. She walked slowly to the ancient throne, not with pride, but with peace. Derek stood behind her, silent, loyal, tired, but proud. The council bent the knee, and the people did the same. She had returned not as a lost girl, but as a leader who had faced fire and found light. Luma took the throne, and in that moment, the stars felt different, not colder, not darker, but free. And Derek, once just a delivery man on Earth, had helped change a galaxy, not with weapons, not with fame, but by carrying a blind girl through the rain.